Every single student will see a negative impact in some form.
Tonight at 6, the Anchorage School Board president talks about the budget passed less than 24 hours ago, plus reaction just ahead.
Plus concern from some UAF faculty and students surrounding a new DEI policy, reaction from the school's chancellor.
Rain and gusty winds over southeast Alaska and some wet winter weather will spill into south central. I'll go over your forecast.
And two military branches go head-to-head in a hockey game. We catch up on the annual Commanders.
You're watching Alaska's news source.
I don't see any other source of funds.
And now the fallout from deep Anchorage School District budget cuts starts to become reality.
The Anchorage School Board approving those major budget cuts last night as it finalized its budget. The district faces a deficit of more than $100 million, and the cuts include language immersion and Ignite gifted student programs for elementary schools, all middle school sports, high school hockey, gymnastics, swim, and dive programs.
Yeah, hundreds of staff positions will be terminated, and class sizes are expected to increase. Thousands of students will be impacted, and the only way for the school board to reverse the cuts is if the state legislature increases per student education funding.
The key right now would be to get the state to do their part at a very reasonable level and maintain that. That's the goal.
Now, the last time we heard from the governor on education funding, well, that was last week. In a social media post, he said he does not support the education funding bill many union members are fighting for.
And that's House Bill 69, which is fast-tracking through the legislature and would greatly increase per-student funding. Last week, the governor said he continued to support behind closed-door negotiations between his office and lawmakers to fund education.
And one day after those cuts, we are hearing emotional reactions from educators and parents concerned about the future.
And that includes Anchorage teachers facing layoffs later this spring. Some of them part of the 3,000 members represented by the Alaska Education Association. Leaders there say that they're hearing from teachers concerned about their jobs, hoping it will not come down to mass layoffs.
Educators have felt extremely overwhelmed in their positions with extremely large class sizes, with excessive student behaviors, and not enough support structures in place to help students with the outcomes that we're all hoping and aiming for.
You know, every single year we've had to get used to the idea of something important to us being cut. And this year we're not only looking at Ignite, which my daughter is in, but then also we're looking at losing staff at our school.
Now, the AEA's president says that he hopes a state funding increase will pass to prevent layoffs, and he was happy to see that contingency included in the budget. We'll have more reactions from parents and students when we see you tonight on The Late Edition.
Now, as mentioned, programs on the chopping block include middle school sports, as well as high school swim and dive, gymnastics, and hockey. We're joined now by youth sports advocate and executive director of Healthy Futures and the Alaska Sports Hall of Fame, Harlow Robinson. Harlow, thanks for joining us.
Hey, good to be here with you guys.
So what are your initial thoughts on the school district looking to cut sports as a way to meet their budgetary concerns?
Oh, it's really gutting, you know. I'm sharing the sentiments of most people here in the Anchorage area, especially parents and people involved in education. And sports are just such a huge part of education. I would say essential. And I feel it just feels so wrong to extend the pain of our financial problems on this population of kids.
And you touched on it, but in your experience, what role does athletics play in a young person's life? I mean, how can sports impact education?
Man, it's so much more than I can cover here in a short little interview, but you know, there's just mountains of evidence about the positive benefits of youth sports. And, you know, especially, you know, we're talking about middle school primarily, and this is an age, it's really, really important developmental age for, you know, children transitioning, becoming adolescents and going through that stage in life where they really learn to identify as either active people or not active people, and the participation in sports, most of them will not end up being elite level athletes and even high school level athletes, but they certainly build a ton of self-esteem and learn all sorts of life skills just through participation in sports. And the evidence around students being physically active, performing better academically, and socially having greater social skills is irrefutable. And taking this benefit away from our kids is just really begs the question of what is it that what kind of outcome are we wanting for our children, who are our greatest resource?
Okay, any thoughts on alternative resources to ensure that at least the high school sports can remain intact?
Man, look, I mean, I'm sure everyone's out there scrambling. I know there's a lot of hope on the state legislature to solve this problem. So I think that's where the most focus is on right now. But as far as contingencies, I know there's a lot of smart people out there that are preparing for the eventuation of those resources not being there. And you hate to put more on the backs of parents and booster clubs and stuff like that, because they give so much already. And honestly, my biggest concern is with the low-income communities, where they just don't have a lot of that kind of support, whereas some of the more affluent parts of Anchorage, it's more readily available. And you see a real, built-in gap there when you take away this kind of programming from the school.
All right, Harlow. Harlow Robinson, Executive Director of the Alaska Sports Hall of Fame. Thank you so much for taking a few minutes.
Yeah, thanks for having me, you guys.
Now, we're told there's confusion in Fairbanks after a Board of Regents vote to strip references to affirmative action, diversity, equity, and inclusion from online and print communications. Now, they say they had to comply with a Trump administration executive order.
There's a lot of uncertainty.
Chancellor Dan White says he's hearing about confusion from UAF faculty and students, and that includes questions about the College of Indigenous Studies program and the name of the Nana Diversity in Action Center. White says the programs will continue with no plans for change.
It's a confusing time. It's ever more important for us to be a place of belonging, and it's our actions. It's our actions with students, with faculty and staff, that enable them to feel that. So we want to continue, we will continue to do that.
Board of Regents reaffirmed their quote to dedication to being inclusive and went on to say they're committed to offering equal opportunity and access for all. Chancellor White says the UA system's been discussing the challenges with Alaska's congressional delegation.
And now to an Alaska News Source update. The Office of Special Prosecutions says Juneau police Officer Jonah Hennings Booth was justified for shooting and killing Ashley Ray Johnston in December.
Now, back on Christmas Day, police say that Johnson was threatening people outside of a convenience store holding a tool that had a hatchet blade attached. And when Officer Hennings Booth arrived, she reportedly refused to follow orders and advanced toward officers. JPD says Hennings Booth then fired 2 shots, and that killed her. A big storm is hitting the Panhandle.
And some of that spilling into South Central. Meteorologist Jackie Purcell joins us now with the forecast. Jackie.
Yeah, some of those big impacts are being felt tonight into the Panhandle. It started last night. Some of that is even moving into parts of the South Central region, namely Prince William Sound and around Thompson Pass. It's easy to pick out that big spin of low pressure right there near the Gulf Coast. That front continuing to affect the Panhandle. South Central, as I mentioned, there is some snow and higher elevations, but a large number of folks along the coastal communities are going to see rain. There is still that winter weather advisory for Thompson Pass. Still a nice evening shot there from our camera on top of our building. It's the alpenglow of both Denali and 4 Acre. 32 is our current temperature with calm conditions. It's also pretty calm into the interior. They're at 11 above in Fairbanks with winds out of the north-northeast at 7 miles per hour. This is the rain forecast for the South Central region. So you can see that those coastal areas really on the east side of the Kenai Peninsula, Seward, Whittier, Cordova, they could see inches worth of precipitation coming their way as this next big front moves in by Thursday. Here's a look at the forecast for Anchorage, Fairbanks, Juneau, as well as Bethel. For Thursday, 36 degrees, but it could go up to the low 40s in parts of town here. And Fairbanks, high teens for your high temperature. And it'll be rainy weather for the Panhandle, 38 in Juneau, 17 for Bethel. I'll have more on the forecast coming up a little bit later, so stick around.
Absolutely. Still ahead, the friendly competition of the Commanders Cup. See who came out on top and what the special game between Air Force and Army really means.
Plus, a bill headed to the governor's desk aimed at updating infrastructure in Seward. We'll dissect the plans for a multi-million-dollar passenger dock.
You're watching Alaska's news source.
Well, defending the goal as they defend our nation. On Saturday, the Army and Air Force met at the Big Dipper Ice Arena in Fairbanks, well, for a friendly but competitive game of hockey.
I don't think it really matters who wins. Everybody's going to have a good time tonight.
A good time for both Army and Air Force fans. Lots of yelling and cheering for their side to win during this hockey face-off.
I love our country, and Air Force is just that much better than Army. You'll see it here on the scoreboard.
From the start, the matchup proved one-sided, with the Air Force hockey team scoring 4 goals in the first period to the Army's 1.
We want to see a little bit of aggressiveness in our soldiers because that's what we ask from them as Army soldiers.
From there, Eielson scored another 2 points in the second half with nothing for Fort Wainwright.
We've been to a few hockey games, but I'd say this event probably trumps all the other hockey games we've been to.
Finally, the Air Force outscored the Army 2-1 in the third, ending with an 8-2 victory. With this win, the Air Force takes back the Commanders Cup after the Army's win last year. But the rivalry only goes so far.
Before the game, Colonel Paul Towns and I were talking together. And we both looked at each other and said, hey, good luck. Both teams here are winners tonight.
Saturday's game marked the 29th Commanders Cup matchup and broke the tie for the series, with the Air Force now ahead of the Army 15-14. Inside the gates, Alex Bengal, Alaska's news source.
Thanks for listening. Click subscribe so you can get the latest podcast from Alaska's news source automatically. And stay up to date with breaking news and in-depth reporting available for free 24/7 with the Alaska's news source app.